Today on Grails to Astonish, I'm going to talk about some books I think are overvalued in the market right now. All of these books have taken a beating in the last few years as prices have dropped dramatically across the board, but the ones I'm going to highlight are books I think still have further to go. Now before I get into it, I need to explain the main measurement I'm using to assess how a book is valued. I call that market cap. The way I determine market cap is I take all the CGC graded universal copies of a comic at every grade and multiply by the fair market value of the comic at each of those grades. A comic might go for $100 at 9.8, so if there are 10,000 copies of it at that grade, that's $1 million. Add all those values together and we get a book's overall market cap. The first book I want to talk about is Amazing Spider-Man 361, the first appearance of Carnage. Now, no one is actually reading these books anymore, so the quality shouldn't be too big of a factor, but it's worth mentioning that this comic is derivative trash on every level. The character of Carnage is really just a riff on Venom, and Venom himself is a very 90s steroid adult riff on Spider-Man, so we're talking about something that is a copy of a copy. And in a similar way, the art style is very obviously Mark Bagley doing his best to copy Todd McFarlane while actually meeting deadlines and not quitting to start his own company. And then there's the character himself, Cletus Kasady. I mean, come on folks. Cletus Kasady. This guy is just the hackiest, laziest stab at the 90s serial killer craze. There is nothing good or original happening here at all. Looking at the numbers, ASM 361 has the fourth highest CGC population of any comic book ever published, and 9.8 copies often sell for over $300. Clearly a lot of people out there really care about Carnage, and I don't want to take anything away from them, but with that many copies in circulation, the market cap for the book is over $4 million, and that is nuts. To put it in perspective, the market cap for the first appearance of Carnage in 1992 is higher than the first appearance of the Rhino in issue 41 or the Scorpion in issue 20. These are legitimately rare and great books, and 361's market cap shouldn't be anywhere near that. No one should be paying $300 for a 9.8 copy of this book. They should be paying closer to the $100 that Venom #1 goes for, and when sale prices drop down to that level, I will stop picking on it. Now, I'm going to compare it to a different Spider-Man character debut that I think is on more solid ground. Ultimate Fallout #4, the first appearance of Miles Morales. This is a character with a lot more depth and quality who's been featured prominently and successfully in the recent movies and games. There are still a ton of copies of this book, but nowhere near as many as ASM 361. It goes for higher prices and has a market cap of almost $8 million, which is a lot more than the Carnage book, but also a lot easier to justify. Miles Morales is a character who is going to stick around, and his debut is worth having in a collection. For the next overvalued book, we're going back to the Silver Age, and a very silver character with Silver Surfer #1. This is the first issue of Silver Surfer's own series, but it's very much not the character's first appearance. And while it looks like it was drawn by the character's creator, Jack Kirby, it's actually John Buscema imitating his style. What the book does have going for it is Silver Surfer's origin, which readers were very curious about after his classic debut in FF48. Who's that shiny guy riding a surfboard across the galaxy at the speed of light? But they were generally pretty disappointed to learn that his origin is kind of just a reheated version of Superman's doomed planet backstory. The character quickly went from cool and mysterious to mopey and dull. This comic is also the first appearance of Silver Surfer's love interest, Shalabal, and that is suddenly meaningful now that we've learned the Silver Surfer we'll meet in the upcoming movie is named Shalabal and not Norrin Radd. Speculators have been bidding up the price of this book over the last few months based on that news. There's really not much to that character though, and I'm pretty sure the use of her name won't amount to much more than a quick nod to us nerds, and its long-term impact on the value of this book will be absolutely nothing. The market cap for this book is $9 million, with another 9.8 copies selling just last week for $132,000. Folks, that is too damn high. Let's compare that to another book from just 3 issues later, Silver Surfer #4. Now this cover is Buscema being Buscema. Buscema being Buscema. It's a beautifully framed image of 2 characters facing off, a concept he used several times over the years, but none better than right here. I've had dealers tell me this book is scarce because it was low circulation or something, but it's not scarce at all. There are almost 6,000 copies, and they go for high prices, making the market cap for this book almost as high as issue 1. But I would argue this book's high price makes more sense based entirely on the cover, which is considered by a lot of people to be one of the best comic covers of all time. Is the story any good? I have no idea. Honestly, I don't think any of the stories from this first series are considered very good, but the cover is fantastic, and that's enough to make it sought after. With prices for both books about the same at most grades, I'd say issue 4 is a far better one to own. X-Men 266 has a high sales volume right now on news that Channing Tatum will be coming back as Gambit. It's the 7th most graded book with 9.8 copies selling for over $500. Gambit is a popular character. It's fair to say, though, that his presence in the MCU will probably be brief, and he's not on a Deadpool trajectory. For an X-Men key with better long-term prospects, look at issue 101, the first appearance of Phoenix. With only a third as many copies in the CGC census, it has an almost identical market cap to 266, but it's way more important to the larger mythology of the series. The early issues of Chris Claremont's legendary X-Men run are great books to collect and still fairly affordable. Along with The Death of Phoenix and Days of Future Past, this is probably his most important single issue. Gambit is fun, but he's kind of a flash in the pan. The beginning of the Phoenix saga is a much better investment. These next two books I'm going to compare are really interesting, and I'm going to put them both up at the same time because I honestly can't in good conscience call one more overvalued than the other. Amazing Spider-Man 50 and Fantastic Four 48. These two books have a lot in common. They're both massively abundant. FF48 has the highest population of any Silver Age book, and ASM 50 is not far behind in third place after Iron Man 1. Amazing Spider-Man 50 is the first appearance of the Kingpin, and FF48 introduces both the Silver Surfer and Galactus. And it's worth noting that none of those characters appear on the covers of either book. Galactus is named, and everybody's looking at him, but we don't actually see him. You'll see multiple copies of both these books on pretty much every major online auction. Heritage, ComicLink, and Comic Connect will always have a few of each lined up in different grades. And despite the fact that bidders can choose between multiple copies, you'll usually see all of them go for at least close to market value. Despite the similar number of copies and similarly high demand, the market cap for these two books is very different. ASM 50 is worth almost $11 million, while FF48 is worth more than double that amount at $23 million. You'll have to really dig into the numbers to figure out why they're so far apart, and the answer is that FF48 is way more abundant at the highest grades. There are more than 5 times as many 9.8 and 9.6 copies, all of which command very high prices and account for about a third of the total market value. Why are there so many more near-perfect copies of FF48? Well, legend has it that somewhere around 2003, several sealed boxes were found in the storage room of a gas station in either Utah or Canada that contained hundreds of untouched comics from February-March of 1966. You'll see a big spike in the CGC population for all the Marvel comics released in that month, including ASM 33, X-Men 18, and Avengers 26. But FF48 is the only one considered a key book, and so those are the ones that got auctioned off on eBay and soon found themselves graded and up for sale. Now, which of these two books is overvalued? It's tempting to say FF48 because many collectors, including myself until just recently, had no idea about the warehouse find that flooded the market with high-grade copies. But then again, it's the first appearance of both Galactus and Silver Surfer, as well as one of the best FF covers. Even if there are tons of copies, it's still a great book. Likewise with Amazing Spider-Man 50, this is considered by many collectors to be John Romita's best Spider-Man cover. I personally don't agree. I'd put 39, 55, and 67 above this one just for starters. But I would agree it's a very simple and iconic image that sums up the character as well as any other single image. It's also very, very red. Another thing these two books have in common is that you could make a strong case for both these issues being the branching off points for two major subgenres of the Marvel Universe. With the debut of Kingpin, this is the beginning of street-level stories about organized crime that paved the way for Frank Miller's work in the 80s, featuring Daredevil and the Punisher, as well as Power Man, Iron Fist, and a number of other more grounded characters. Meanwhile, the coming of Galactus is the beginning of Cosmic Marvel, which led to Jim Starlin's stories about Thanos, Adam Warlock, and the Infinity Gauntlet, not to mention Guardians of the Galaxy, Nova, the Eternals, the Celestials, and all those spacefaring characters. I still haven't answered my initial question, which one is overvalued? I'm afraid I have to just chicken out here and say it depends on your taste. If you love the street-level stories about crime and corruption with Daredevil getting beaten to a pulp, Amazing Spider-Man 50 is your grail. If you're into cosmic trippiness and beings of unfathomable power who create and destroy planets like they're making pancakes, it all starts with Fantastic Four 48. Personally, I'll take this one. The last book I'm going to talk about is Incredible Hulk 181, generally considered to be the first appearance of Wolverine. It's the third most abundant Bronze Age book. Or fourth, if we're counting Wolverine 1 in the Bronze Age, which I do. I think of the Bronze Age as ending in 1984 with Secret Wars and Spider-Man's new costume. Anyway, Hulk 181 is right in the dead center of the transition in the hobby from Silver Age books that were considered worthless on the newsstand, are hard to find in good condition, and are worth a lot of money today, and Bronze Age books that collectors immediately put in bags and boards, hoping they'd be worth something someday, and are therefore, ironically, not really worth very much. More than any other book in existence, Hulk 181 combines high population with high prices, giving it one of the biggest total market caps in existence at over $75 million. $75 million. That's higher than Fantastic Four #1, Hulk 1, Amazing Spider-Man 1. With the far smaller populations of Golden Age books, it actually has a higher market cap than Detective Comics 27 or Captain America #1. The only three books that are higher are X-Men 1, Action Comics 1, and Amazing Fantasy 15. Does this book deserve to be that high? No, definitely not. There is no other comic in existence with over 1,000 copies at 9.0 that's still selling for over $7,000 in that grade. In looking deeply into the numbers of the collectible comic market, I've actually found that prices are, for the most part, pretty rational, and most books are priced where they should be. Hulk 181 is the most glaring exception. No matter how great the enthusiasm for Wolverine as a character, these sale prices just shouldn't be happening. I would say they should drop by roughly half. And to talk briefly about the content of the comic itself, it's just not a great story. The Wolverine in this comic is just a villain of the month, with none of the depth and mythology added in later stories. There's no mention of an adamantium skeleton, his immortality, the fact that he's fluent in Japanese and has a whole long backstory over there. He's even still got those silly whiskers. To compare it to a similar book that I don't think is overvalued, I would look at Giant-Sized X-Men #1, which is the next place Wolverine showed up just a few months later. The Wolverine in this book is already much closer to the character he became, but it has a lot more going for it than just Wolverine, with the first appearances of Storm, Colossus, and Nightcrawler, as well as the island of Krakoa and the whole concept of a rebooted X-Men that was suddenly a whole lot cooler than it had ever been. I actually just traded some books for a copy of Giant-Sized X-Men #1 that's on its way to me in the mail right now, replacing the much lower grade copy I had as a kid that got stolen out of my dad's basement. I'm looking forward to having that on the wall in my next video. So those are all the books I'm going to talk about today, but I've got a whole other batch of overvalued comics I'm going to talk about in another video. Please let me know what you think in the comments, tell me what I got wrong, and give me your picks for most overvalued comics. Thanks for watching.